Hey, storytelling one. I want to talk about the trans thing real quick here. Okay, so Paris Olympics drag queen responds to backlash. We ain't going nowhere. That's a double negative. But anyway, that means they are going somewhere. Anyway, so a drag queen carried the torch of the Olympic flame. We ain't going nowhere after the theatrics received backlash for appearing to mock Christianity. But even Breitbart has some questionable words here. I think sometimes they just use Associated Press, which is kind of weird. So Dahl also reposted an image to his story claiming that the Olympic ceremony was a depiction of the feast of the Greek god Dionysus, not the Last Supper. But we already know that they've already claimed it was the Last Supper before the controversy. And what's her name? The woman, she had posted on Instagram that it was a gay Jesus, famous New Gay Testament. That's right. She posted a New Gay Testament, and they've already said that it's that, and they do continually mock Christianity, and also they can bear false witness. They can bear false witness because there's no rule that says they can't. This is the gay LGBTQ2 agenda. Also, we ain't going nowhere. Okay, so this whole thing about we ain't going nowhere kind of implies something, and they've always said this, like we're the modern times, we're the new, we're the thing. I've heard them say that as part of their whatever. But so let me get something to you. I'm going to read something to you. This is from Dominion by Tom Holland. I'm still reading it. It's pretty awesome. I mean, he's an atheist. He's an atheist, but this book is about Christianity. I don't really care for his paraphrasing of the Bible. Like he kind of does have his own sort of poetic descriptions of the Bible, which I find unnecessary. I guess he's trying to explain it to the secularists. But I got to read something to you guys. Okay, this is chapter 5, Charity, AD 362, Pacinus. I hope I pronounce these correctly, but a lot of Latin and Greek here in here. The new emperor. So I've been saying general or whatever. It's the emperor, so Caesar. The new emperor, heading across Galatia, found signs of decay in every temple he visited. And by the way, I've been mentioning this in a lot of my videos, this thing depiction here, and I'm going to read it. Paint flecked from statues and altars stood unsplashed by blood. The strut of the ancient gods had in recent decades become a cringe. Nowhere perhaps was this more evident than in Pacinus. Here, since primordial times, Cybele had her seat. Cybele? Cybele? I'm not sure how to pronounce. I'm going to say Cybele. Once her castrated priests had ruled the entire city. So this is before Christianity. It was from Pacinus in 204 BC that the first statue of the goddess to arrive from Rome had been sent. Half a millennium on, pilgrims still took the road to pay honor to the Divine Mother. Fewer and fewer, though. Even in Pacinus itself, Cybele's hold was slipping. The great bulk of her temple, which for centuries had dominated the city, increasingly stood as a monument not to her potency, but to her fading. Ooh, the bulk of her temple, which for the centuries had dominated the city. That could turn into like a pagan ruin in the Dark Ages. The shock of this cut Flavius Claudius Julianus to the quick. The nephew of Constantine, he had been raised a Christian, with eunuchs set over him to keep him constant in his faith. As a young man, though, he had repudiated Christianity, and then, after becoming emperor in 361, had committed himself to claiming back from it those who had abandoned the ever-living gods for the corpse of the Jew. So that's a good way to say it. Abandoned the ever-living gods for the corpse of the Jew. I mean, a good way for pagans to respond to Christians in the game. By the way, I'm talking about my Fort Lord game. A brilliant scholar, a dashing general, Julian was also a man as devout in his beliefs as any of those he dismissively termed Galileans. Cybele was a particular object of his devotions. It was she, he believed, who had rescued him from the darkness of his childhood beliefs. Unsurprisingly, then, heading eastwards to prepare for war with Persia, he had paused in his journey to make a diversion to Pacinus. What he found there appalled him. Even after he had made sacrifice and honored those who had stayed constant in their worship of the city's gods, he could not help but dwell in mingled anger and despondency on the neglect shown Cybele. Clearly the people of Pacinus were unworthy of her patronage. Leaving the Galatians behind, he did as Paul had done 3 centuries before. He wrote them a letter. Or rather, he wrote to their high priest, Julian. Julian, in his struggle to explain why the worship of Cybele had fallen into such destitute, did not content himself with blaming the ignorant and weak-minded. The true blame, he charged, lay with the priests themselves. Far from devoting themselves to the poor, they lived lives of wild abandon. Interesting. Keep that in note. This had to end. In a world rife with suffering, why were priests getting drunk in taverns? Pagan priests. Their time would be better spent, so Julian sternly informed them, in providing succor for the needy. To that end, subsidies of food and drink would be provided out of his own funds and sent annually to Galatia. My orders that a fifth be given to the poor who serve the priests, and that the remaining be distributed to travelers and to beggars. This totally makes sense. Democrats, pagans, they believe in government charity. That's how they believe in charity. And watch as I keep reading. But that's how they do it. They regulate it, they control it, they take a piece of it. That's their form of charity, forced charity, which isn't charity. Julian, in committing himself to this program of welfare, took for granted that Cybele would approve. Caring for the weak and unfortunate, so the emperor insisted, had always been a prime concern of the gods. If only the Galatians could be brought to appreciate this. Remember, he was raised Christian, so he had this whole Christian ethics ethos in him, but hated Jesus Christ and wanted to, well, he probably, unbeknownst to him, he was just thinking in a Christian way, but yet the pagans were definitely not thinking that way at all. If only the Galatians could be brought to appreciate this, then they might be brought as well to renew their ancient habits of worship. Teach them that doing good works was our practice of old. An assertion that would no doubt have come as a news to the celebrants of Cybele themselves. Behind the selfless ascetics of Julian's fantasies, there lurked an altogether less sober reality. Priests whose enthusiasm had run not to charity, but to dancing and cross-dressing and self-castration. The gods cared nothing for the poor. To think otherwise was airhead talk. So I could go on about this, and it's amazing. It keeps just destroying this. They're not the drag queens are not going anywhere because they have always been. They have always been. The priests did not run to charity, but to dancing and cross-dressing and self-castration. They hung out at the taverns and got drunk. Oh, man. Whew. They did not care for the poor. Oh, man. They scorned the weak and downtrodden. The only ones they helped were the ones that were once successful and powerful and then may have gotten into bad times. Then they believed in charity for them, just to get them back up and get something out of them. Get something out of them. But as far as the downtrodden poor, man, the church exploded because of this. The people were helping and they were forming in very organized and elaborate ways charities to help the poor and the needy. They were getting bishops. Everything was just happening, and it even describes on later on in here that the abortions and the child sacrifices and the getting rid of the children was massive on a huge scale. So it's such that they take the newborn children, put them into brothels, put them into slave camps if they could raise them, or they would just discard them. It was the Christians who came along and started taking up those babies and giving them life again. So this is the life that we're deciding on right now in this world. Do you want one where we have these drag queens, this sexual perversity, the sexual grooming of children, the massive scale of abortion and child sacrifice, or one of churches and Christianity, and all that and adoption? I just saw an article where in Oregon they will not allow Christians to adopt now, the government. Whereas before it was not the government handling the widow and the orphan, it was the churches. The churches would handle the widow and the orphan and help them through charity. But now, through some emperors like these pagan emperors, they're taking it over through government and controlling the adoption agencies, shutting down and on a massive scale the Catholic adoption agencies, like in Massachusetts after the LGBTs got the majority, they totally wiped out the Catholic orphanages. This is happening across this country. What are you doing about it? What am I doing about it? Speak out, keep speaking out, join a church, support the church, raise men who get into politics, raise young men and women who will get into politics and bring God back, overtly bring God back into the forum, and Jesus Christ back into the forum, because they're bringing their LGBT, their rainbow flags. They have declared war on us with the rainbow flags. They're declaring they own this property, this conquest. That's what a flag is. It's declaring their that they have won their conquest. So this is your choice. Get back to the church, make political leaders, put them in there. I'm not saying Jesus is going to come in the end. He's our savior, but you and I need to do something for the Lord. And this is my answer to it. The church, that's what Jesus said we should be doing, is the church. And what does the church do? It gets involved in the community, gets involved in helping and doing this is 300 AD, what they were doing. Charity, massive amounts of helping people. They were getting the rich involved. They were getting the leaders involved. But it was all through charity, through the choice of the people. All right, so do that. If you're an RPG person watching me, this is our own little way of doing it. Starting a ministry, a fellowship, a group that then you grow on. You grow that out, expand it out to more players, other people, that we readdress Christianity and church history, in evangelism and church planning in our games, but also in a way to show others and ourselves how to do it in real life. All right, in the game of life, roll holy dice.